So what do we do as data engineers? What is the day-to-day operations of a data engineer? The previous speaker has spoken about project management and, had mentioned how essential this is, within any team, and similar to project management as well. Data engineering is also a very, very essential, part of every technical team. And so, what exactly do we do as data engineers? What do I do as a data engineer? So, one of the first major things that we do as data engineers is to collect data, right? And I know that this might sound cliche because everybody within the data ecosystem talks about data collection. But as data engineers, we're literally the first point of contact when it comes to any data project, because we're the ones that would get the data from whatever source it's coming from. All right. And so our role really is to have that first point of contact with the data, which includes, being able to capture data from multiple sources, also being able to build reliable data pipelines to be able to move data from one point to another. A lot of times it's usually to a sort of central system where, other people can pull data from, like data analysts, data scientists, and, machine learning engineers can also pull data from that source. So in essence, data engineers are the first point of contact when it comes to, any form of data operation. And they also make sure data is readily available for other downstream users of data, as I said, like data scientists and also data analysts. Again, the entire pipeline of what we do as data engineers starts from data collection, because we're the first point of contact to access data. All right. So after getting the data, after connecting to the original data source, after building pipelines to fetch data from its original source, the next is to fix all sorts of discrepancies, remove duplicates, standardize the data. Again, it's just for us to be able to ensure that, as I said, downstream users of that data can have access to quality data. All right. So as data comes in its natural form, there's a need to remove, duplicate. There's a need to standardize the formats. There's a need to, handle missing values. A lot of times you have to transform into structured format. Also, another, part of our work as data engineer is data storage, right? Because again, one thing that you want to put at the back of your mind is when it comes to large scale projects, data is usually very heavy and messy. All right. So having collected the data, having done transformations and all sorts of cleaning, we need to now store the data. Remember, storage is necessary so that other people can connect to that data and then they can have access to it. All right. So you collect it, we organize it, we then store the data. And this requires us to design, maintain databases, data warehouses, data lakes, all forms of data infrastructure that ensures that, other users, other people within the team can access the data. And then the next is delivery, which is the final one. All right. As data engineers, we don't necessarily do a lot of day-to-day analysis, or of course, some companies and organizations have different stacks. All right. So there are companies where data engineers also have to do some sort of dashboard operation, some sort of data modeling. However, it's not like a day-to-day thing that we do. All right. The most important thing is you're getting data from a source, you're putting it together, you're organizing it, you're storing it, so that you can then deliver it for business intelligence or machine learning, or whatever downstream analysis you do as a team. All right. So the goal is make sure the data is cleaned, available to data analysts, and also available to data scientists. Also, I just also wanted to talk about, the pathway. There's so many different pathways as far as data engineering is concerned. I personally transitioned from, being a data analyst, and then I moved to becoming a data governance officer, and then I moved to becoming a data scientist, and then I moved now to becoming data engineer. All right. So I will just put together like an overview, something that generally captures every single thing as far as my transition through all of these opportunities, because I know that not everybody here would, particularly be interested in data engineering. Some others might just would be interested in data analysis, data science, or perhaps data engineering potentially, right? So when it comes to the pathway, there are so many different pathways. If you go online and do a search of, pathways to data engineering, or pathways to, data science, or pathways to data governance, whatever you are interested in, or data analysis, you'll find that there are different pathways, and different people have different stories. I transitioned from, working as an inventory officer who had to work on Excel extensively to store records. How many did we produce today? How many did we supply today? How many damages did we have? That was basically where the journey of becoming a data professional started for me, right? And so I moved from, inventory analyst to data analyst, right? To at some point database administrator, and then at some point got a job as a data scientist. I got a job as a data science research assistant, and then got another job as data quality and governance officer, and then moved on to data engineering. All right. So I have had a taste of all the four major, of course, there are a lot of other parts of, data, but when it comes to data ecosystem, we talk of analysis, we talk of science, we talk of, engineering, we talk of governance. There are all sorts of other parts. Of course, there's machine learning, there's AI engineers, there are all sorts of, other roles, but, those are some of the four common roles, I would say, within the data ecosystem. And I've had a taste of all of these different, parts of data. This would capture a lot of things, right? And so I'll start with Microsoft Excel. Personally, right? Microsoft Excel is my goat. Now, the reason I said it's my goat is because I got introduced to data by mistake. I have a background in mechanical engineering, which is, my first degree. So I didn't really, see data as something very important, or it wasn't something that really occurred to me as something that I would be doing. All right. But I mean, as a fresh graduate, I got a job in a construction company. I had to do inventory for them because that construction company also produces concrete additives. All right. And it was a very big company, supplying concrete additives across Nigeria at the time. All right. And so it was my responsibility to take record of, how many uh, how many tons of concrete additive did we produce? How many did we sell? How many damages did we have? How many spills in terms of liters do we have? How many was rejected? Just regular things like that, just putting it into Excel. And that was how the journey started for me. And so every single time I want to talk to anyone who wants to get into data, of course, data has now evolved so much that, there's so many things that you can do with data. There's so many things you can do with Python on its own. But for me, the journey really started with Microsoft Excel. And if there's anyone who is looking to take a similar pathway, again, just to put like a disclaimer, this is not cast in stone. It's not one shape fits all situation. People have different experiences, but this is my own story. This is my own experience. And I think that it would cut across, if you drop maybe 10 people in data now, you probably have, 6 to 7 people who have similar journey as me. So the first is, I learned Excel, picked up like basic functions like VLOOKUP, XLOOKUP, learning how to use pivot table, learning simple basic data cleaning techniques, trim, left, right, concatenate, conditional formatting, and all these other Power Query things. It was just things that I just picked up. Of course, it took a while. It was not something that I learned in a couple of days, all right? But I mean, it was just something that I picked up over time, I would say, right? So if there's anyone who is also looking to take a similar journey, these are some of the key points in terms of things that you should learn with respect to, getting into data. All right. And the second thing for me that I learned through my journey as a data person, at the time, I did not even know that, I was going to end up becoming a data engineer at any point. But I just realized that, if I check 10 data roles 7 of the 10 data roles would require SQL. All right, because again, as I said, data at the large scale, at the very large scale, data is stored within databases or data warehouses or data lakes, whatever kind of data you're working with, whether it's structured or unstructured or semi-structured data, is stored in some sort of system where you need to query it. All right, and so I found that SQL is so important and essential that everyone literally needs to learn SQL, right? Everyone within the data space, I would say, would need to learn SQL. And so what are those essential parts of SQL that we all need to learn, all right, for anyone who is getting into data? I would say first is some of the basic select statements, select, from, and then move on to joins. Or there are three. I mean, there are so many types of join, like anti-joins and all that, but that's not here. But again, these are like just the major things as far as some of these tools are concerned. We talk of left join, right join, inner join, and all sorts of other types of join. But these are the three most important ones as far as getting into data is concerned. And so we also have aggregate functions. Aggregate functions just really helps us to put things together. At the core of what we do as data analysts, data engineers, data professionals, whether it's AI, whatever, you're trying to put things together and then you're trying to identify patterns, basically. All right, whether it's a data analyst, you're trying to put things together, analyze, calculate, whether it's a data scientist, you're trying to put data together, identify patterns, or whether you are, a data engineer, you're trying to get data from different sources, you're trying to put it together. So this is what births the use of aggregation, the use of joins, and also subqueries and CTs. These are just ways of writing smaller chunks of code that relates in sort of, sometimes you have large query that you cannot, write at once, and so you want to be able to write a query that can reference another query. Essentially, we also have Windows function. They basically just help us to segment our different groups within our data. Also, Power BI was also another thing that I picked up on the way. And I'll say that Power BI is so important because it gives you the opportunity to visualize data. And when it comes to Power BI, again, there are four major things, four major tools, or 4 or 5 major areas within Power BI that I think would be essential for people who want to get into data to learn. Basic data import. How do I connect data from third-party platforms like Excel, like SQL, or am I using an API, which is very common if you're working with large-scale companies or machine learning and things like that. You would always constantly have to use APIs to get data. Also, we have DAX function. There are all sorts of DAX functions are just like the mathematics behind data visualization, which means data analysis expression. We talk about data modeling as well. This is also another very, very essential part of any form of data, whether it's data science, whether it's data engineering, whether it's AI. There's some sort of relationship between your data. This is very, very, very important because the goal is, a lot of times data is not just coming from one source. All right, data is usually coming from multiple sources. So data modeling is building a sort of intricate relationship between your data, and this helps you understand the relationship between them and how you want to merge them together. All right, also another area in Power BI that is very essential is building interactive dashboard. At the end of the day, my role as a data engineer, or within the data ecosystem in general, building interactive visuals is just for you to be able to see what comes across, really. Also, you have Python as well. Python is also very, very essential when it comes to data engineering or data in general. When it comes to I think we talk about pandas, for some sort of data transformation, data cleaning, NumPy, for a lot of numerical calculation, data visualization. We talk of Matplotlib, we talk of Seaborn. Those are the two major ones. And also working with APIs, JSON, passing and requesting. These are like very essential part of data, and also basic ETL scripting. This is just an introduction to data, as it were. and how to get into it, and some of the interesting things that we need to pick up along the line. I'm sure that as we progress with the mentorship session, would have a lot of people, a lot of instructors get to introduce us to some of this concept as time unfolds.